Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about your ISTE 1 paragraph and how to write it. So the first thing you need to do is when you go to the ISTE 1 page on our course website, you need to make a copy of the scoring guide. So if you click on that, then you can click on the make a copy, obviously, because you've done this before. And once you get to the scoring guide, I want you to go and get the URL for your ISTE 1 and put it right here. It just makes it a lot easier for me to go one place and be able to go and grade what I need and go back to your scoring guide, because I will be grading your ISTE 1 paragraph with this scoring guide. You also do need to put your name up here. Okay. And also make sure that you move it into your shared folder for this class for technology. Okay, and you remember how to do that. You can do that. As you can see on the criteria for the ISTE 1, you're going to be talking about knowledge of teaching and learning, and that is about the methods. So you're going to explain one student-centric teaching method and directly connect that method to student learning. And I'll show you an example in just a minute. You're also going to describe at least 2 technology tools or examples that connect to proving the standard. So this standard, if you look up here, it's all about using your knowledge of subject matter, teaching and learning, and technology to facilitate experiences that advance student learning, creativity, and innovation in both face-to-face and virtual environments. What we're going to focus on, we haven't quite got to the content or the subject matter part yet, but we're going to focus on the method and the technology tools and how those affect how students learn. And so you'll describe at least 2 tools or examples. And also you have to make sure and connect how the method that you choose and the technology tools that you explain, connect that to how it affects student learning and creativity. And I'll point that out in the example that I'm going to read. And then you need to make sure and link and clearly explain one project that connects and proves that you've met the standard. You will include a picture in any links that you put to outside resources. You will put on your the bottom of your page, and then I do count spelling and grammar. So those are the criteria for this paragraph. And so all of the paragraphs are going to start in a similar fashion. You're going to start by actually using the direct wording of the standard, and that just will give context to anybody that is reading this on your website. So you need to tell them really what ISTE 1 is. So you'll start with the exact wording. ISTE 1 focuses on how teachers use their knowledge of subject matter, teaching and learning, blah, 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 all those things in the bolded language right here, okay? So it says, this is the standard that I'm talking about. And then after that sentence, you're going to explain how you prove that you have met that standard. So in proving that, you're going to explain one of the student-centric teaching models that we have explored already. Those would be flipped classroom, inquiry-based learning, problem-based learning, gaming, cooperative learning could be used as well. And so how does that type of teaching method connect to prove that you have met the standard? It says right in the standard, teaching and learning, okay? So your knowledge of teaching and learning is part of that is the teaching method that you have explored. So you're also going to connect how that model, how flipped classroom or inquiry-based learning, how does that bring out student creativity? So we will have already talked about maker spaces, 3D printing, collecting apps for students to create things with. And so you can then connect that creativity back to your model. How does that enable that? How does having a flipped classroom enable student creativity? Maybe they get to use apps and create something to show their learning. So that could be how those connect. You also need to think about and explain how a teacher's role is being redefined So, before a teacher was a lecturer at the beginning at the front of the room, and now teachers are more interactive. The students are taking more of a leadership role in the learning. It's more hands-on, things like that. So how the teacher's role is changing. And then by the time you write this paragraph, you will have explored several resources about different learning models. You will be reading about how some teachers integrate these different models or these different creative devices into their learning. So you can actually make the connection between what you're thinking and what other teachers are already doing and what that means for your future classroom. So we will reference and link at least 2 tech tools that you've explored and explain those, and then 1 project. Some of these might count for more than one thing. Like if you explain the project, the Storify list of apps that you're going to do, one of the tech tools from that list could meet this requirement, the link at least 2 tech tools. Okay. You also need either a video or an image that will illustrate the concept. Okay. You cannot use the picture that I chose here, but it needs to be something about creativity or inspiring learning in that. Something like that. So down below here, you will actually give image attribution. You don't need to put it right below the picture. You can just do it here. If you link to a teacher's website or a blog post or a resource that you've explored, you need to put the link down here as well as within the paragraph itself, link to that outside resource. Okay. So I'm going to go now to an example that I have written out, and what I've done is I've just put the specifics up here that are on this ISTE 1 page, and I'm going to actually give you the link to this example for this first one so you can get a good idea. But I'm going to talk through it a little bit. So ISTE Standard 1 focuses on a teacher's ability to, and then I just wrote word for word what it is. And then in my second sentence here, I am making a direct connection to the standard. To meet this standard, I have done what? What have you done? I have explored many resources and created projects to prove my understanding of this important aspect of teaching. So I say generally what I've done, okay? And then I tell specifically. So first, a teacher's instructional method and the learning environment that she creates impacts student learning and creativity in many ways. So I'm drawing the connection to the teaching method. Okay, so I'm kind of setting the stage. In my classroom, so I'm now telling what I'm going to do, the one that I'm going to choose. One method I will use is the flipped classroom approach. Okay, and if you click on this right here, you can tell that I would have linked our resources here with that explanation. Okay, so one of the things that I read about that referred to a flipped classroom approach. So in my classroom, one method I will use is the flipped classroom approach, which is a student-focused method. I need to write that in there. And allows for collaboration and problem solving, making students more engaged in their learning. So you can tell in that sentence, I not only explain the approach a little bit, calling it student focused, but I also tell how it connects to student learning. So the student learning comes from the collaboration and the problem solving. Okay. So you see how I'm kind of fitting all that together, all those requirements from the scoring guide. Similar to plans for my own math classroom, I'm taking on that role as a math teacher. So similar to plans for my own math classroom, I have read about other teachers implementing the same model, such as Mr. Jones, who implements flipped learning in his middle school math classroom, focusing on student needs, allowing students to work at their own pace, and giving time for reteaching at school or for small group projects. So I would actually link, one of the resources I read about talked about how Mr. Jones does this in his classroom. And so I link there as a good example of what might happen in my class as well. So this shows the connection between the approach itself, what I would do, and what other teachers are already doing. So it kind of validates and supports my choice of this method. Okay. So I would link that right there. Secondly, to prove my understanding of the standard, I have begun to collect different apps for promoting creativity in my classroom as students work to show their understanding of different mathematical concepts. I have collected these apps with Storify, which is the tool that you're going to use to collect these apps in your project. I can't remember which session it's in right now, but I would link that right there, the Storify project. Okay. I have collected these apps with Storify for easy access later in my own classroom. One of the apps I have decided to use in my classroom is Explain Everything, which I would link here, which is an app that can record a student's voice and their on-screen movements as they explain how they solve math problems. So if you think back to those criteria, I've talked about Storify, which is one of the projects we did, and now I'm explaining some of the specific tech tools that are on that to meet the requirement of the specific tools for the paragraph. I also have explained it. So I not only said it, I told about what it did. This ability to hear students thinking and see their chosen method of solving problems will engage them in learning, promote creative problem solving, and allow me to help address problems and reteach exactly where their understanding breaks down. So you notice I not only explained it, I also told how it connected to student learning and my role as the teacher. Okay. So I can take that, what they create with that app, and it helps me to teach them in a better way. So another one, I could also promote creativity in student learning by having students create their own monsters with 3D shapes on the 3D Master app, and then having them print their creations out on the 3D printer, increasing motivation and innovative thinking. If you think back to some of those things we explored, we looked at 3D printers, we looked at maker spaces, those type of things. So I connected those right here. And again, I would link this app. Throughout these processes, my role as a teacher is to guide the learning, collect and share resources, and help the students critically think about the whole learning process. So again, I tied my role as the teacher into the different things that I chose to talk about. By exploring many resources, creating these projects, and discovering other examples of these ideas at work, I have increased my knowledge of my subject matter, teaching methods, and how to increase student creativity. These innovative approaches to learning prove that I have met ISTE Standard 1. So at the ending of your paragraph, you need to kind of have this concluding sentence that kind of brings it all together. And you say, I've done all these things, therefore, it proves that I have met this standard. Okay. So make sure that you have, even though it sounds like a whole lot of different things in there, all of them fit together and flow and have a reasoning behind them. Okay. So we're trying to meet all those different pieces of the ISTE 1 standard. Okay. So don't forget that anytime I have a link here, I say I have a link, I have a link, I have a link. These will actually be linked on your paragraph within the words and listed down here on the resource links. Okay. So the image will be there, but so will the other links. And so I'm sorry that this video is so long, but I really wanted to give a great explanation for this first ISTE standard reflection. And so you'll be better prepared for your later ones.